Moses, God comes to him in a burning bush, says, go to Egypt, get my people, my 2 million Israelites out, get them into the promised land, which is what you and I know as modern day Israel. Moses goes there, says, let my people go to Pharaoh. Pharaoh says no. 10 different plagues come on to Egypt. Finally, Pharaoh says, bye-bye, leave. And the Israelites have gone out. Last week we saw them, or 2 weeks ago, we saw them actually cross the Red Sea. And what we're learning through the life of Moses is one main lesson that I'm hoping that we get. And this is what it is life constantly is changing. Constantly. That's just the way it is. And what I want us to realize as we go through this is that life will never stay stagnant. It's always going to change. Sometimes it changes for the good. Sometimes it changes for the bad. But it always is constantly changing. And here's our screen for this one. This is going to be our job, to move forward in faith, knowing God is still leading even when your life doesn't go as planned. And I think sometimes we forget that. I think sometimes when our life does not go as planned, we automatically think God's forgotten us, he hates us. You're trying to work through this ministry thing and it falls apart and you think, well, God can't be in this. Or someone, your husband divorces you and you're just like, well, God can't be in this. Well, here's what I think. I think we all have predetermined plans in our life, what we think our life should look like. A lot of times we think, I feel like God is leading me to that guy if you're single. I feel like God is leading me to that job. Or I feel like God is leading me to that particular church. Or I feel like God is leading me to that profession or that school. And then suddenly something happens that changes that whole trajectory of your life. And most people do not know what to do with that. They're confused. They don't understand where God is in the midst of the whole thing. When we were watching Heartland, I don't know if any of you watched it. It's a story about a ranch and a family in Canada, and it's a really, really good family show. But one of the girls that was on the show like 5 years ago, they brought her back in this season 10, and now it's been 5 years. And her one problem that she had was she looked at Jack, the main character, and she said, everything's changed. Like Amy's married now and she's pregnant and now, the little baby is now 5 years old and so-and-so's divorced and the whole world changed. And Jack said something interesting. He said, Mallory, life would be really boring if everything just stayed the same. It's not meant to stay the same. It's meant to change. And that's where we find the Israelites. They finally left, and in their preconceived mind, they're thinking, we're going to leave Egypt. And we're going to go right to Israel. It's going to take 2 weeks. We're in our land, building homes, new day, everything's great. Here's our next screen. It never occurred to them that things would not go as planned. It just didn't. And I think for you and I, the same thing happens. It never occurs to us that the business deal won't go through, or the guy will still marry me, or the school rejects me. Like, it just doesn't occur to us that things won't go as planned. This last weekend, Cheyenne went to Disneyland. She works with high school students at this church she goes to. They went on that, how Disneyland, it's those horrible trips, like where you leave at nighttime and you drive all night with a bunch of high school kids that want to stay up all night. And then you arrive at Disneyland at 7, and then you go all day and all night. You get back on the bus at midnight, home at like 8 in the morning. So this is like hell on earth is my thinking on that, okay? I would say kill me now. But anyway, she goes and does this, so they get back and they're so exhausted at midnight on Saturday night. And the predetermined plan is we get on the bus, we all go to sleep, and we are home in 7 hours. Unfortunately, someone knocked on their little bus door before they left and said, you have a flat tire. Yeah. So they didn't get home till way late in the morning. They didn't even leave Disneyland till 5 in the morning. So they're a disaster, okay? But I started thinking about that. And I thought, that's just life. Like, things come up and they change all the time for us. And we got to learn what to do with those kind of days. Since they left Egypt, the Israelites, of course, had this predetermined plan that they would just go right into, but Moses takes them, or God takes them the long way around. He doesn't even take them right straight to Israel. He takes them down by the Red Sea. And then suddenly the Egyptians come, traipsing after them to try to get them back into Egypt. And they don't know what to do with all of that because it's not how it was supposed to happen. I think for Moses, he thought, as soon as I get these people out and into the land, in 2 weeks, I'm going to be home. I'm going to be with my wife, my kids. That's my predetermined plan. And we know later that Moses spent 40 years in a place that he never thought he would be. Some of you have this predetermined plan about your marriage. You thought that when you get married that everything's going to be great, and you're going to stare at your husband in loving, whatever every night, and things are going to be great, and you're never going to fight. You're just going to always get along. And then you get married, and you realize that that's not how that predetermined thought process in your mind really went. There was a 4-year-old, he had difficulty grasping the concept of marriage, and so the dad said, well, I know you're having a hard time with this. Let me bring out our wedding album. Brings out the wedding album, thinking that visual photos of this wedding would help this child understand what marriage was all about. Here's your mom, here's the wedding, here's the reception, here's all this. At the very end, he said, do you understand that? The little girl says, oh, I think so. She said, that must be when mommy came to work for us. Okay. Now, when you get married, welcome to the real world, because now you have a job, and it's not staring at your husband and getting along great. It's you're a taxi driver, and you're a chef, and you're a housekeeper, and you kind of forgot that in your predetermined plan in your life, okay? Sometimes if you have kids, and I guess all these kids that want to have babies, and I just can't wait to have babies, and I tell you this all the time, I'm like, okay, go for it. It's going to be they think it's going to be fun and simple, and the kids are going to just smile and laugh and make them happy. And I'm just like, oh, honey, trust me, that's just not even reality, but okay, go for it. A 15-year-old came bounding into the house, found his mom in bed. She was sick. He said, Mom, are you really sick? And she goes, yeah, I really am. And he said, don't worry about dinner tonight, Mom. He said, I'll be happy to carry you down to the stove. Okay, so kids, welcome to having children. Some of you got a new job and you're like, I just thought my job would be fun. And you're like, what do you mean it's work? It's work, okay? But I thought college would be different. I'm going to go away from home and it's going to be so much fun, but I found myself in jail because I'm making stupid decisions. But I thought I would be married for 75 years. But my husband passed away. Do you see how this goes? Like, we have these predetermined ideas in our head that things should go a certain way, and then they don't. And if, in fact, that happens, here's what I want you to know on our next screen. God often moves us to places we do not expect to go.